So, welcome to the first episode of
Mirror World Fren.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually,
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen Arnold. I'm the CEO and creative director of Fracture Labs, which is the developers of Decimated.net, which is a multiplayer open world survival role-playing game in a cyberpunk universe with a Web3 layer on top of it as well. So.
My name is Wendy. I reside in Paris, not far from Lisbon, by the way. I represent Karmaverse. Karmaverse is an AAA gamefi multiverse containing multi-metaverse such as Karma Zombie, Fantasy World, Old West. The game released in April this year, and as well as our token. Our token can be traded on Gate.io and BitGate. And we have currently over 60,000 in-game players. And also we are ranked on the top 3 on Polygon game as of June, rank number 20 of cross games. That's pretty much of the update. We are working on the staking program system.
Hey guys, I'm Chris. I'm co-founder and CEO of Mirror World. For those who don't know, Mirror World is a multiverse of casual games. So we develop on mobile, and we have our own SDK layer that essentially powers all game development from onboarding, wallets, as well as marketplace. And we want to make that experience for developers to create new crypto mobile games really, really easily. And we've been, talking to a lot of game projects within the space, helping everyone to kind of propel their project as well, but really learn from every single one of your projects. So really excited to share more and learn more about your projects, within this episode.
Yeah, I think that even though it's a bear market right now, I feel like there's a lot of projects that are very similar. It's kind of an oversaturated market with a lot of very similar projects. There's a few kind of key players in the sector that I think are really going to make a big wave. Not because of the crypto aspect, but just because they're good games. But we get contacted quite a lot by a lot of companies that want to partner up with us, and they all, to us, they kind of all look the same, and they're not really up to the standard that we're looking for. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot of exciting things happening, and the industry is definitely growing. So I'm really excited to see how things are going to progress in the next few months, and how Web 2 and Web 3 are going to kind of merge. So yeah.
Personally, I believe it's still in a very early stage. Usually, GameFi is considered as the latest trending thing in Web 3.0 development. We have seen many projects appear on the market, and some phenomenal ones like Ashe, Steppen. But more or less, they encounter different bottlenecks during certain stage. In the faster growing, this is a faster growing industry. Innovation can be found everywhere. It's both exciting, and at the same time, it also means we need to pay the trial and error cost to be creative. That's my answer.
Yeah, it's a pretty big question, I guess. I think it's really interesting now. For the last year or so, we've seen that I guess crypto games have evolved so much, and I know for games like Decimated, they've been working on their application for the past for a while, with such a high quality Unreal Engine game. I think we're going to see a shift towards a more gameplay driven economy in the next half year or 12 months or so. I would say that I would categorize the shift for crypto games as phase 1 of a lot of Ponzi-nomics. Even for Axie Infinity, it was at the end of that 1.0 for crypto gaming. And then step N, which kind of created a more controlled economy as well as controlled emission schedule. I would call that 2.0, where it broke out of this circle of just Web3 users looking for financial returns a little bit more. But I think we're still, exploring towards that goal of reaching the 3.0 stage where we can see sustainable economy driven by in-game revenue instead of just pumping out, virtual tokens to its players, incentivizing on future returns. So that's something that I've been actively paying attention to, where I think, someone that is very experienced in game making like Steven or like Karmaverse could be, one route to the 3.0 that I was talking about. The other route could be a more sophisticated economic model with a very simple gameplay, just like how Step In essentially created their app, but with a additional layer of complexity. So, just waiting to see that happening. And I think either way, onboarding, conversion, and user experience is going to be very important for those games.
Well, I think that, whether you're making a traditional game or a Web3 related game, user acquisition is always a challenge.
Right.
There's a lot of game developers, especially indie game developers, which I would categorize the vast majority of Web3 game developers as indie developers. They're always struggling to try and get exposure. They're struggling to raise money. They're struggling to market their products and get brand awareness. It is really, really hard. And the reason that it's hard is because both markets are highly oversaturated. I think that the video games industry has always been really oversaturated. There's hundreds and thousands of new games that are released on Steam and the App Store on a daily basis. And now the Web3 sector, which is suddenly over the course of the last 12 years has become oversaturated as well. So you're basically competing for the attention span of everybody that's out there. You're not just competing against other game companies or other Web3 or traditional Web2 game companies. You're also competing against Netflix, TV channels, sports channels. Everybody's fighting for your attention right now these days, and that's why, we've got really short attention spans because we're just bombarded with all this information. So I think that there's a lot of strategies that companies can use to try and influence a positive user acquisition strategy, but there's not a one size fits all. Otherwise it would be really easy and then everybody would have hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter and on social media and Discord and stuff like that. But I think that the most important thing is to differentiate yourself and your product from the competition by having higher quality gameplay, higher quality marketing material, and building a community organically, rather than thinking that you can kind of hack it by maybe paying for followers or running some kind of campaign where you're going to give out loads of freebies, for example. I don't know. I think that it needs to be kind of organic for you to have a core team of community membership, and then you can grow from there. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. But however, Stephen explained very well, and I agree completely. Because I really, really agree, and it's the time that we should do more than before. That's what we do in Karmanauts. Our marketing team pushing very aggressively recently, a lot of collaborations, a lot of campaign, and we ran a lot of Discord games to build our community. Yeah, so we just go ahead. We don't care about the market, how is it going. We just do our best.
Are there some key marketing strategy you guys are using right now? Can you share a few?
Yeah, but actually we follow the trend. GameFi is really going fast. All the marketing strategies, it doesn't work after 2 months. So we just follow the trends. Also, we follow the new projects and some new ideas.
Interesting. Chris, you want to share?
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So I think Stephen touched on a very good point where differentiation, through quality of gameplay, definitely makes a very large difference. And obviously, we have to keep track of the competition, just like Wendy said. I think from our side, we think a lot about the distribution channel of these games. So let's say in Web2, I'm sure our audience is familiar with like different publishing houses, publishing deals for indie games, and it's really the backbone of this industry is having one of those deals signed for one of the games that you produce. That's where essentially all the marketing, all of that launching is taken care of once you have that game content. In Web3, it's a little bit different because community is so tied in together with your natural product growth. You're incentivizing your core user through token launches, delayed airdrops, and stuff like that to your core target demographics. And we think about like what are some channels to reach the right type of user, right? Who are going to be hodling your token, your NFTs, not dumping them on the market as soon as you go live, but at the same time they're also contributing within your community as well as your game ecosystem. So, for example, I think targeted Web2 ads is something that not a lot of people utilize as much in the Web3 space, but I think there's tremendous value if your onboarding process has low enough friction where you can just use social login, you can use a wallet generated for the users as well as a marketplace conversion. Then the friction gets lower to a point where you can just calculate the ROI based on your CTR, click-through rate, or your advertisement campaigns. So your growth can be scaled, but the initial growth or initial product market fit that you find should still be within your core Discord community of these like power users. So we looked at essentially our retention for our games, which averages around like 70% for the second day retention, which is ridiculously high for any type of game if it's not advertised to your core users. So I think community is so tied together with that advertisement campaign where you can grow and scale your marketing once you hit that sweet spot within your own Discord channel, for example.
Yeah, I agree. I think that also it's one thing that is lacking, like you mentioned, like in the traditional video games industry, a lot of smaller companies will work with a publisher who already have acquired all the users from all the games that they publish. That's the value that you have of working with a publisher, is that they can help with marketing, PR, translation, testing, and even helping you with brand exposure at various different conferences and things like that. Like when I was at Gamescom just a few weeks ago, there's one part of me that's like got the ego that says we don't need a publisher, we can do it all ourselves. But then you go to Gamescom and you see what the publishers are capable of in terms of the kind of boosts that they can put in place, because they're thinking big. They're not thinking let's make a small game with small revenues. They're thinking let's go big. We're going to exhibit at Gamescom, we're going to exhibit at E3, GDC, and we're going to do things big. So there's definitely a lot of value. I don't think that there's enough publishers yet in the Web3 space. There are one or two. I would consider Gala Games, for example, as a publisher of games. And I think that there's definitely a market for there to be this kind of publisher entity that can help some of the smaller companies with infrastructure, with marketing, with PR, and all that kind of stuff to help them get a lot more exposure. And it's a win-win for the developers and for the publishers as well. But at the moment, it does seem very fragmented. I mean, it's very fragmented in a lot of ways because people are using different types of blockchains. So you've got communities that are almost kind of at odds with each other because they're Ethereum chain, Polygon chain, Solana chain, Avalanche, all these different ones. People are very, territorial in a sense, of like which kind of clique they belong to. And then of course you've got different types of games, whether they're medieval games or sci-fi games. There's so many different reasons and ways that communities can be divided, and it makes each project. It's more difficult for them to actually grow a user base because there's a lot more things to kind of be pigeonholed into. So I think that it is really, really difficult, and I don't think that there's like one size fits all, as I said before, a marketing strategy that really works. But I think they're doing a little bit of everything: paid ads, running competitions, community engagement, user acquisition strategies, amazing trailer content, AMAs, working with YouTube influencers, doing Twitch streams, inviting people to come and play your game and stream it on Twitch, for example, and then attending conferences, that kind of thing. It all helps. It all helps towards brand awareness of your project.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, actually, we have tried everything, and sometimes in the beginning the campaign works very well, but later we found out the convert rate is low, and we realized the airdrop, the giveaway attracts a lot of airdrop hunters, and we changed to Discord game because it's slow. It's not as fast as campaign, but more organic. Like Steven said, we just have to try everything.
Right, Chris, you just wanna say something?
Yeah, so I think adding on to the point a little bit, I totally agree with what Stephen and Wendy said. And I think there's one caveat where a lot of crypto games have been wanting to, increase their conversion with different experiments, but the infrastructure for a lot of these games is just not there. For example, if you're targeting traditional Web2 users with your advertisement campaigns, and you want to have real gamers come into your ecosystem, but there's no existing conversion because these users actually don't have MetaMask or Phantom, but like our existing support with cryptocurrency, and the login system is all kind of fragmented. So I think the first step that we have to solve is obviously the acquisition problem, where how do you onboard your user with very seamless social login? Web3 Auth, Magic Lane, us, we're all working on that problem. But within the specific chain, for example, we're building on Solana, and the Solana ecosystem is very young in the sense that the infrastructure support for mobile games, for Unity, for Unreal, they're not there yet. So I think the first question that we think about is essentially how do you create the systematic software to support onboarding, activation, and then at the end of the day, right, all we care about is essentially letting your players who enjoy the game really be able to purchase one of those assets directly within the game experience itself, instead of hopping to, let's say, OpenSea or Magic Eden and having to go through 3 conversion steps. Because every single time you leave your application, your users leave your application, that's essentially a 25% drop in their will to convert. So I think that's huge for games, any type of games. Those numbers is what we care about the most. So really like having that, that's why we are making an SDK for our own games and opening it up to developers. But I just wanted to emphasize on that user experience piece.
Yeah, and that's the thing, from our perspective, we're a traditional video game company. We've been working in the video games industry for decades. Some of our team members have been working for more than 20, 25 years in the games industry. So we're definitely coming from what people now call the Web 2 gaming world. As far as I see it, it's just like normal video game industry content. But what we've decided to do is to add on a Web 3 layer to the existing centralized traditional gaming style. So we're making a traditional multiplayer online role-playing game, but with wallet functionalities that people can deposit and withdraw tokens or virtual items from the game wallet into their private wallet, or maybe to SoulSea, Magic Eden, as Chris mentioned. But of course, we also want to have the functionality inside our game and in our back end for there to be transactions that take place inside the game as well. So for us, it's really just like an optional layer. It's not core to what we do. It's just added value if people want to trade their assets on the secondary marketplace, for example. So, and of course, if the token has value, then people can play the game for 100 hours, 150 hours, whatever, and then they can cash out some of the virtual currency that they've earned inside the game with other people that want to come and play it. So I think that you're always going to have a choice between the different types of games that are on the market, much like you have a choice right now with the different types of games that you can download on Steam or GOG or the Epic Store. There are some people who think that Web 2 gaming is going to die out and it's all going to be play to earn Web 3 games. But I don't believe that's the case, because there's always going to be an audience for kind of single player narrative driven storylines where you just play the game for 8 hours and there's no monetary value or monetary gain in it. You just play it because you enjoy the story of playing the game. You're always going to have those kind of games. You're always going to have hyper casual games on mobile. Some will be free, some will be paid, that kind of thing. Then you're going to have traditional games, which might be the premium model, where you pay $40, $50, $60, you download the game, and then maybe you can download downloadable content in the future, for example, for an additional price. And then you might have play-to-earn games as well. So I think that from my perspective, the introduction of Web3 and the play-to-earn type of ideology is just a new type of monetization strategy for video games that actually empowers the players a little bit more because they can actually cash out if they don't want to play the game anymore. So, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think because the amount of users that a lot of mobile games, especially free-to-play mobile games, are able to access, you know, a successful game could have more than 10 million downloads, and a lot of those games at the moment are free to play, and they're generating revenue simply from the advertising. You know, even if people just play the game for 2 minutes, let's say 10 million people play the game for 2 minutes, they download it and play it. That's 10 million impressions where that company is generating enough revenue to maintain operations of their company and develop other games. So I think that the mobile market is absolutely massive. The PC market and the console market is also very big. That's what we're targeting initially. But of course, we're not going to alienate the mobile market. I think there's a lot of value there. So yeah, I think that, and I think that we always kind of planned from the beginning that eventually there would be a mobile version of Decimated, and it would also act as a kind of wallet for you know, for your tokens as well. So you might be able to use your mobile phone to customize your character, maybe buy some virtual items in the marketplace, then you can play the game as well. So yeah, I think it's a huge market for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Karmaverse Zombie is a mobile gameplay. People is able to be downloaded from Apple Store and Google Play. Personal perspective, yeah. For example, there are a lot of friends of mine. They don't know, I think they don't know how to use a computer anymore. They don't need a computer for working or for fun. And I went a lot to Southeast Asia. The people there, they just they're different compared to Europe. In Europe, people still use a lot. They use computers. Some people even doesn't have a computer. They prefer to use a chat. But in Southeast Asia, people doesn't. There are not many people use computer. I mean, maybe in the bank, but in the daily life or in the school, people use their phone, and with the phone it's better. Even me, I learned computer, but I found out that my mobile works better. So I believe it's a trend, it's the future.
Right. But like when you guys are developing the mobile version of like Karmaverse, is there any like obstacles when you guys are developing it, or is there like frictions when users are, you know, playing the game?
On the developing level, I'm not sure. But our team is very strong in developing. They came from a gameplay background came from a Web 2 gameplay background. The 2 game that they developed has contributed $2 billion revenue. And these 2 games are very famous. So I believe there might be some difficulties, but they can manage.
Yeah, so I think it's an inevitable trend that most games will be cross-platform. If development allows for it, obviously you want to capture every single market possible. How we think about mobile and mobile first is because we saw when our Discord community was at around 20,000 people that a very interesting number, 52% of them were primarily mobile, meaning that they didn't have PC Discord installed on their devices, which is a significant number, adding on to the users who both use Discord as well as Discord mobile as well as PC. That would put us at around like 70 to 80% of our total Discord members. So coupling with the demand of like where does the value of crypto really come from, right? Let's say that our country is banking based on the US currency system. Then your inflation rate is capped at, let's say, 8-9% a year at its highest level. The currency for a lot of our so-called global countries, developing countries, has a higher inflation rate. So the adoption for cryptocurrency naturally comes a lot higher, within these countries. Argentina, for example, is around like 80% inflation rate, such and so forth. Obviously, there are geopolitical risks as well associated, but why I'm mentioning this is because we think that the intersection of this geographic demand for cryptocurrency is also coupling with the fact that they are the users that are most familiar with mobile applications. But think about the mobile support on your crypto device, right? What was the last app that you used for crypto on your mobile phone? It's inevitably either a centralized exchange or a wallet. And I've been talking to a lot of founders about this. I don't think you would disagree. So unless you really have that support for these on-ramp payments, mobile devices, as well as like Android and iOS SDKs that haven't been there yet, crypto is really lagging behind in terms of adoption on the mobile side, where we spend around 7-8 hours of our day on a mobile device already. So I think that's a hugely untapped market, and I wouldn't say that every game should go mobile. But I think it would be a competitive advantage at this time if you have a good mobile experience. And I think that's largely how games like Steppen actually grew out of that crowded space or oversaturated space, like Steven said. Obviously, for some of the heavier gameplays, just like Decimated's amazing visuals and Unreal Engine, that's a different target demographics that are not about microtransactions. They're about DLC. They're about asset purchases and playing the game after they have the asset, really experienced in content itself. But for something like a casual game, a Voodoo type of game, or a Candy Crush type of game, if you want to adopt crypto as your backend payment system, just to increase that flow of capital within your secondary market as well as your primary sales, then mobile is very obviously the choice. So that's how we think about the entire ecosystem, and all we have to do is just keep pushing it forward.
All right. I think that's all of the questions for today. So thank you guys for joining with us, and we wish the best of luck to your projects. And also for those who are interested in discussing more topics about GameFi, we do plan to host more Mirror World Friends in the future. So please let us know if you are interested in participate in the discussion. Yeah, I think that's all for today. Thank you guys for joining us.